3?
2.
2. Oh, wait. You're gonna... I forgot that you say 2. All right. Are you ready? 3.
2.
And we're back. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Andy and Jen Talk About Stuff. So last episode, I want to start by saying it took us a little longer to get that one going just because there was a lot we were talking about still after that. Like, you know what? Should we change this? Should we... go add that. And it's like, you know what? No, we just need to let it be. And then we had family in town for 2 weeks. Well, almost 2 weeks from both sides of the family. So thanks for joining us once again. If you had not watched that last episode, maybe after this one, go back and catch that one. There's a little bit of overlap, but some carryover from that conversation, that story into this one that we're going to talk about today. So if you are just finding us in your life now, you can go back one episode and get a little more context to all the things that are leading up to the point of the conversation we're going to start today. So we're going to end off from the rise and fall of 9010 brand and kind of the 2017, 2018 year. But here we are in 2025, and there's this really important kind of 7-year period where a lot has happened that we're going to talk some about that stuff today.
Yeah,
in
7-8 years, yeah.
Time-wise, but also what it means, why it means that, and then some of the things we've had to do for ourselves and then with each other and also then with our kids in that same time. So
yeah.
Is that a good framework for our talk today? Okay, good.
There's a lot in there. I think the biggest thing for me that I have been praying about what we're supposed to be sharing is that from the last episode, we were talking about the ask that the Lord put on my heart to pray. And that was in the wrecking, wreck your husband in all the things that he's out of alignment with. And then also at the same time, ask me about your spiritual giftings. And there was a whole lot within that season in 2017, where from August on, it was okay, what are you trying to establish and reestablish in our lives? Well, for the next 7 years, the Lord did a crazy work of demolishing and redefining and reestablishing certain things that we didn't even know we needed. And a lot of the times I think we can, as believers, I think we can get into an unhealthy idea of when we ask the Lord for something and he answers, really, because he answered almost immediately when I prayed that prayer of just take away everything that's not for you, of you, by you. And it was an immediate answer. We legitimately lost everything and he took it all. And so for me, it was a really hard adjustment over the next 7 years. I mean, I think probably the first 2 years specifically.
So you're talking about 2018 and 19?
18 and 19, because those were really big depression years for you.
Oh yeah, those are hard. Well, yeah, those are hard years. I didn't know if that's the.
Yeah, so the first 2 years of that were really hard because I was going, well, you already took everything, and he's going, okay, yeah, but you still now have to learn to function in the new. What I took away, you now have to learn to walk again, and you now have to put on trust and put on faith. Not you asked, I did, but now it's because I gave you the answer to that prayer. Now you have to actually trust me for the things you can't see. And that took 7 years to purge and retrain and heal a lot of the broken things.
I want to make sure it's clear to people. It wasn't it was 7 years and there was this light switch. No. It was this progression over time of 7 years. Because I think there's also instances, without having all the context in leading up to this point, it might feel like, oh yeah, I was in this waiting room for 7 years and then someone turned the light switch on. I was like, oh, here we are.
No, it was a slow heal.
That.
A lot of the times you'll hear people say, we're like onions, and God is so gentle that he will reveal things by one layer at a time so that we have time to actually learn to adjust to that new removal process, if you will, and then exposure of whatever the things were, because some of it that we were working through, it was the revealing of generational bondages that we had both been functioning in, that you had been functioning in and had not wanted the Lord to deal with. And so when 18 and 19 came to play, there was a lot of soul care that needed to be done in that process of grieving and allowing people to minister to you through that process of actually learning to walk again as a man. There were a lot of things that you had to be open to and then diligent with, because of the fact that you now were starting from ground zero again.
So for people who don't understand this kind of idea and this concept, can you kind of lay some framework for what you mean by that? Like you're talking about like generational things that are passed down. You know, there's the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, which is just like this thing we say, right?
Right.
But what that means in the sense you're talking about, can you explain kind of what that means?
Okay. So I can speak to my own journey. Like when you look at the generations above you, and what was really cool is actually, I was doing genealogy stuff with my mom one day, and she had been researching all of these different things where all of the couples that had been I'm the fourth generation, so 3 above me, each family had the same cycles. So I don't want to name our cycles because that's ours, and our family has our own things, but a lot of people will deal, let's just say...
A repeated pattern of that from one generation to the next, to the next, to the next.
Yes. And
almost like it's built into the DNA, even though that's not what we're talking about.
Right. And so, but those are spiritual bondages that I don't know any of these people aside from my grandparents. I don't know my great-grandparents.
You don't know that, yeah.
So I know my grandparents and I know my parents, but above them, I never met them. And so even my great-grandparents, I've learned functioned, and then even one prior, I learned that they functioned in similar cycles that we ended up functioning in, and those are just spiritual bondages that carried down the generations. So over these 7 years, the Lord, by peeling away the things that we had been distracted by, the things that we had been functioning in unhealth by, for the sake of our marriage and raising our kids, in that time frame, he started revealing the things that were of generational descent. And, oh gosh, we do function in that. Oh man, I didn't realize that by my words, I was speaking agreement with whatever that was. And I know one of the things for us, I will mention, is the spirit of poverty. And I didn't recognize how much of that we had come into agreement with when it came to how, well, we're just being frugal, or because we chose for me to stay home with the kids and raise them, we automatically came into this idea that we would always be some sort of broke because we only had one income coming in every month. And quite honestly, there was one season where we had $500 coming in every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that was a season where not only did the Lord have to show us how to actually be more creative in how we utilized what we had in our hands financially, but it also, I found myself, it revealed the fact that I know I and you had come into this understanding of, well, this is all we've got. This is all we're getting. And I know the Lord loves us, but well, that's our lot.
And with this awareness, though, came the recognition at the same time, as much as it is like looking up the generational line, mm-hmm. it's like they're happening at the same time. Like, mm-hmm. oh shoot, I'm recognizing this is something that's kind of landed at our I'll say rung of the generational sure. ladder. At the same time as I'm like now then in the adult years, mm-hmm. looking back at my life and going, oh my gosh, now I look back and see that, mm-hmm. and then see this other thing and that other thing. Where at the time when I was younger, I didn't know that it was that.
Right.
So now it's like it's kind of both happening in this mm-hmm. centrifuge, if you will, where. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I see that about us. Oh my gosh, that's why mom and dad. Oh, that's why my grandpa. And then it was this light bulb moment for me going, oh shoot, we have been like just carrying on this. It's not a tradition. It's just this generational curse, really.
Agreement.
And it's like, dang, why are we doing this? We don't need to fall underneath that. We don't need to subscribe to that. We can rewrite that part of our life and also stop it at this line so that the
our
legacy for the next one, the legacy for the next one can be different.
Right. Well, even with that though, when you see the residue of the things that you've agreed with and you're like, no, God, I'm not doing that anymore. And you leave it to the side, but your kids have already witnessed those functionings and those agreements and those, the words that you speak. I remember we were with, actually a couple of the times, the girls were speaking at different times where they said, well, we're not able to do this. Or we're not able to do that. And I looked at them and I said, why do you think we're not able to do that? Well, because we have to be careful of budget, or we have to be careful. And they were really young when they said it. And now what you need to understand is we've always functioned in a really strong budget because we're on one income. So the girls have always been, I would take them shopping and they would do okay, we've got this much for grocery shopping. And so with their brains, they heard we were poor instead of we have to be diligent with what we have in our hands. And we only have a specific amount to spend means we don't have enough. And so that I had to really work on clarifying with the girls, no, we're still able to do the things we want to do, but we still have to be responsible with how we do it and how often, so we're not abusing what's in our hands either.
Yeah,
So,
there's a practical balance in like them witnessing and living real life through staying within certain financial limits while also not letting those things limit you.
right.
So, but when they're younger, that's different than when they're older, right? So when they're younger, it's very much more practical and like black and white, like we can't afford that today, or we're not buying that today, or that's not on our list to get what we need today. But then now that they're older, it's like, no, there's room for that.
Right.
And there's room for this because we also don't want them to be locked into this like suppressed type of mentality of thinking like, oh, well, we just can't do that or we don't do that. Because then those words then become what carries out and carries forward too.
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of like unleashing the ceiling of thought and behavior and letting that actually have a chance to run into places and experiencing things that does take a little bit more effort and money into having that thing.
Yeah. So that was just one of the examples of the things that the Lord had to reestablish in our life is we don't function under a spirit of poverty, but we do have an opportunity now to teach our girls what it is to be financially responsible. And as they are now young adults, well, Claire's still a teenager, but now they're understanding because of those 7 years of retraining and refinement, we were able to take that one example of what needed to be broken and reestablished and now raise them up to understand this doesn't have to be your portion. But here's how to be responsible with this. And, another thing that we have had to go through for the sake of reestablishing our thoughts is really finding healthy margin in how we do our time as a family and how we do our time in work. And where it had been so normal, workaholism had become so normal in our family that it was robbing us of healthy margin where we didn't and still really struggle with creating a Sabbath for our family where we rest with each other. We rest from the work of the week. We rest in the Lord. And that's not just one day a week that we rest in the Lord, but really having to reestablish what that looks like as a family because we were coming out of such a long season of workaholism where Dad wasn't able to be in the midst of what we were trying to really reestablish as a family. Like, what does game night look like on a regular basis? And what does it look like where Dad's sitting at the table having dinner with us? And so it was 7 years of that, of really trying to take each piece of either, the Lord said, good enough is not good enough anymore. And I was taken aback by that because we had gotten so used to good enough being our status quo. And to this day, I even had a dream last night where the Lord was showing me different scenarios where, as a believer, we have become so used to the status quo and being comfortable with the way other people might function and be in the world, not of it, right? Well, we had been so used to the status quo of it's good enough that we became good enough instead of great as a family. And that has been part of this journey even going into this year.
I want you to talk more about that in the framing of like being content versus discontent, because I think it can be very easily misapplied that you can always just be discontent or you're just never content. Like, how do you? Because I know we've had this conversation, but for everyone who doesn't know us or know that part of us, like, how is it that you have come to a resting point where I am content and also we're still working towards the thing? So talk about that a little bit.
So that goes back to taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ. I think it's so easy, and I don't want to use this as an excuse by any means, but it is part of the equation where we've got a house full of young teenage, early adult girls who are going through their own hormonal changes, and you're welcome, girls. I'm putting it out there.
Life is changing,
Life is
coming at you
changing on
fast.
so many different levels, but trying to figure out how to actually function through what are my feelings versus what is true. And that's a statement I have had to ask the girls since they were each 8 years old. And I say 8 years old because for girls, at least in our house, in our experience, 8 years old triggers a hormonal rush for the next, 10, 12 years of their existence, where it's just like really, really ever changing roller coaster rides of fun. And I say that very sarcastically. And in that process, is what you're feeling true, or are you just having a moment of discontentment? And a lot of the times our feelings feel so real, and they can confuse us and they can throw us off from what we're supposed to be focusing on or how we're supposed to be functioning together because of discontentment, rather than, am I sitting and taking captive that thought? Is that mine to carry, or is that something I just put in the hands of Jesus and let him actually show me where my head needs to be in agreement with? That's the difference between discontentment and truth and contentment, because contentment comes with what is true in my experience.
So how would you describe the difference between sitting underneath a ceiling of poverty and being content? Like, how do you differentiate those?
Okay.
Because you can have a little and still be very content, but then how can you also have a little and not operate underneath the poverty mentality? Like, because wouldn't that suggest then, I'm just devil's advocate, right?
Yeah,
like, wouldn't that suggest that, well, I am content with my 25-year-old car that starts every time, that I don't have to pay for ever again, and my insurance is low. Like, I'm not resting in a poverty mindset because of that. I'm like, it works. We take care of it. It fits all of us. We don't have car payments. Right. It's really low operating cost. So to me, I don't think, oh, that's poverty all over it.
Right.
I would love to have a cooler car, but it's trustworthy and it's reliable. And so to me, I'm like, I'm content with this though.
Yeah.
It doesn't, because I don't value it higher than what it does for me.
Right. And I think that for, at least for us, and those of you who don't know us, Andy has gone through many years, and let's just go. It's been a long time. Most of our marriage, in fact, but like really the breaking in these past 7-8 years has been around. Even that's one of the examples where I remember you saying very often, why can't I just have the car I want? I work hard enough and long enough, and I'm tired. I should be able to afford the car that I want.
Or even when I can't afford it, just have it.
Yes. And even, and just have it. And so, but even in that, what you just said was well, now the Lord has done a work where I've found, whether in plenty or in want, I've found contentment. Like the word says that you can find contentment in plenty or in want. And that has been such a huge shift for you specifically, where you have come away from the argument of why can't I, and I joke with Andy all the time, why can't I just have what I want? And most of the time when I'm
usually
saying
about
that,
peanut butter and jelly waffles.
it is. Or it's of food of some sorts, where I'm like, I'm so hungry, and it's 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, and I just want what I want, but everything's closed, or
I just want rolled tacos.
Whatever. Yeah. Chips and guac right now. Anyway, so that is a huge one where that's a really good example where we could say, I've watched you really, really struggle with your feelings and frustrations because we were bound by that agreement of we never have enough. Now to see you come to this place of, well, we've got 2 cars that work and they're both super old, but we don't have a car payment and our insurance is actually low on them and we're doing pretty well with these cars. Praise God. And we can say that in the middle with joy rather than, I don't have my Porsche yet or whatever.
Well, I also don't care what people think about it. Like that's the thing. Is like, I actually don't care whether you think of me a certain way or not about my cars. That actually says more about you than it does me. Mm-hmm. That's part of it. The other part is,
but it took you a minute to get there is a part of that journey is what I'm saying. The breaking off.
Yes, but there's a subset of that too, is like, I love automotive stuff.
Yep.
And since I was a kid, I've loved it. I had like all the magazines come to my house every month, and like I loved automotive stuff, and I love engineering, and I love like performance vehicles and cool stuff.
Sure.
So that part of me, that's just like something that I have passion for. And so like I want to be able to experience those things because we only get to live this life once.
Sure.
So am I going to just have them in my second life? No, because it's not going to be one. There's going to be this one.
You don't know. God
right?
could have a race car track in
track
heaven.
with me here. Track with me here.
He has burritos for me.
I'm saying this because there's someone else who's watching this that wants something, right? They're like, hey, I want a jet ski or a boat or a plane or whatever. Like that, and that's fine. It's not inherently bad. The thing I'm saying is that I've learned to be content with what I do have while I also strive and work for the thing I want to have.
And that's I think a really good segue into, so you still do that, and with the budget that we're setting and the way that we're working financially now in our 40s, we have a different perspective in how to apply that work and how to apply those funds, where we have set ourselves up with different accounts to grow and build and whatever, so that as we're able and the kids are gone, we can have the 2-seater Corvette or Porsche, that we don't need a 7-seater or 8-seater car anymore because we don't have a lot of kids coming with us. And
they can drive their own car now.
They can drive their own car, but we don't actually have to consider those things. So you've learned over the years to find that contentment in where we are with what we have, with how many kids we have, for realistic, practical reasons. And you've submitted to the fact that we're working towards building into the things that we really want on the back end, but while at the same time still building the legacy and all of the things for the kids to be able to take over when we're not here or when we're retired or whatever. But it really does bring me back to a season where we were literally on a budget of $500 every 2 weeks. Now, we lived with his parents at the time. We had just lost the house. And the Lord, I was able to find contentment in this season because the Lord was teaching me how to utilize the tools within my hands. What do you have in your hands? How can you use that to actually make the money go, stretch the penny? And again, poverty is an interesting one to pull from or learn through because it applies to so many different areas. I think because you can have a lack mentality in a lot of different areas of your life. I don't have enough relationship. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough involvement. I'm not involved in ministry enough. I really like whatever. Lack is a robber of joy on so many different fronts of our life. I'm not high enough in my career. I didn't get the position I wanted. I didn't get the, whatever. That lack can be a robber of joy. And if you don't learn to actually find contentment in the middle of your season of little, I'm not even going to call it lack, because that season was such a season of little. The Lord says, if I can trust you with little, then I will give you more. Now I'm paraphrasing, and look it up, do your thing. But for all of you sticklers for the word, when we can be responsible with little, he always gives us more. And with that season where we had $500 every 2 weeks, he said, make what you eat. And I thought, okay, well, what is that? Well, we eat a lot of tortillas. And that was my starting point with Pinterest and YouTube. And what did I have as tools? Pinterest and YouTube and time. I had a lot of time with the kids. And because of that, I learned to stretch flour really far. And it wasn't just tortillas that we were eating, but that was one of the things that the Lord taught us to do. And I learned to garden in that season where I had soil and I had seed and I had even taken things that we'd bought from the grocery store. I would buy organic apples and I would take the healthy things that we were able to buy, and then I took their seed and I planted that seed and I grew a garden. And 8 years later, it has been 8 years. The Lord taught me over that time how to utilize the ingredients better. Whether it's in the garden or in the kitchen, those are my main stations. And I learned so much from that season of $500 every 2 weeks because we ate really well by that learning. And that was a season where I learned to be content. And you learned to be content by allowing your helpmate to actually function fully in her state. And I don't mean, now, let me go ahead and just stop anybody listening who's going to sit there, the woman's place is just in the home and we're only supposed to be in the kitchen and we're only supposed to be raising kids. I was called to that. I knew that the Lord was calling me to be a stay-at-home mom and support my husband in his career and build the businesses with him as a helper to what he was called to. And my daughters and I, our daughters and I, were able to actually grow differently in that. Let's just call it, our oldest is 20. I have been able to be home and in their everything in the ways that we as a family have agreed to and believed for. So I'm not saying that's your calling. I'm saying that's my calling. Although I will tell you that for me, being able to be home with our daughters and learn in the kitchen and learn in the garden and learn with them as they grow through all of the different seasons of roller coaster rides and hormones, I will tell you that I see the benefits massively of that long season of, I will say, diligence and sacrifice and care that were allowed to happen because we chose this path. So to each his own. But this was the journey that we agreed to as a couple and with the Lord for the sake of our family. And it benefited us massively. And we learned contentment over discontentment in the process of handling little.
Well, and one of the coolest things now, I think, for me is to see that they enjoy the things, they enjoy the things that you make as much as now they know what it takes effort-wise to generate the vegetables or the material to make the thing. So it's not just, we go to the store and buy this. So yeah, some things we still have to go buy at the store. Or we're not pressing olive oil right now, right? Yet. We'll be there. We're not making our own honey. Yet, but
I will have bees.
And so for them, I like that they've been able to see and witness, have a front row seat to the yard being just dirt, and then having some things, and now having a lot of things, and then now harvesting those things, and then creating the things that we would go buy out of those things.
Yeah.
It could be dried fruit. It could be, you've been making minced onion, like out of the yard. We have potatoes in the yard now. We have fruit, and now, hold on, I got to make a comment about the tortillas because now you've ruined everybody. Like, we can't have other tortillas. They have to be like
we can,
yours.
And they're good.
No, but
we've gotten used to what we've
you backed yourself into a corner is what I'm telling you.
We've been taught to do.
Anytime we're going to have anything with tortillas, like, hey, Mom, do you think that maybe...
I don't know, Jill's
tortillas could, yeah, you know what?
That's the other part. Is the kids now know.
But that becomes a full circle generational moment, right? So we had started this conversation with, hey, there's generational things that get passed down that we don't like. And then some of those things we're trying to stop and they're trying to convert them into things that we can create legacy for. And I'm saying all that in this setup is because I want that to be something that the girls carry forward.
Yes.
So if you have your parent and you have kids, or you don't yet have kids and you're thinking about this conversation, like we were intentional about making the sacrifices to do one income and have you be at home all the time with the kids. And then we made the sacrifices to like make the effort to put stuff in the yard. Like you got to lift heavy stuff back there and dig holes and you got to go water it and plant it and put the vitamins in it and all that. And like, you got to feed the soil and you have to nurture it and you have to care for it and you got to pull the weeds. And it's like, but all those things teach the kids that there's work and effort, even if it's by your own hands, connected to the things that you eventually get to be enjoying, benefit from, and find contentment in.
That, and I think where it becomes so easy as a parent when you're busy in the middle of your day I've had to stop myself a few times where I'm like, I really don't want to use this as a teaching moment because I'm too busy and I have these things in my hands. And if I get stopped by whatever the kids might need to learn in this moment, then I'm going to lose momentum in my day and that's going to wear me down and I'm not going to finish what I wanted. Nonsense. So in these processes where I don't want to deal with the kids going, I don't want to, which they honestly haven't really done, I think, because we've fostered that many hands make light work. They don't enjoy the garden until I make them get into the garden. That's a true statement. My kids won't purposely go into the garden for the sake of, I really want to pull weeds today or feed the plants or maintain the worm bin because whatever. They won't do it unless I say, hey guys, I need all hands on deck. I need everyone in the garden and I need you to do it my way, not your way, because your way is half-assed. My way is going to prevent us from having to do this for a month, not a week. and showing them how to actually do it properly so that they get more out of the time spent out there weeks down the road, rather than having to continue going, because they did it halfway. I've seen the girls go into the garden reluctantly and into the kitchen when I'm doing food prep reluctantly. They are very quick to offer help, but then can get distracted. And as a mom, as a dad, it's our job to continue going, come up, reel it back in, focus, whatever. But as we do, the end of the day, after we've done all that work and that prep, they're happier. They've had a really good day, and their gratitudes at the end of the day when we're closing out the evening and they're speaking I really had, what is the best part of your day? It's being in the garden as a family, spending time in the kitchen as a family.
Yeah, making something together.
The thing.
Yeah, hanging out together, being in the same place. Yes. Yeah.
And pushing past the I don't want tos.
Yeah.
And to get into the, okay, I don't either. I don't really feel like weeding today. It's quote, mom's garden, because mom established and did the majority of the building, but it's the family garden, and what it feeds our house. So if we are going to all pull from it, we are all going to pour into it.
Yeah, but there's an important piece of this I want to make sure everyone understands. Like it is mom's garden because like you know more about it than everybody else, and we defer to your knowledge of what plants complement each other, what plants are going to bring in pollinators to then pollinate the other stuff, and then where they have to go, how much sunlight they get, how much what. So like we default to you on that because then you're teaching us those things. But the reason I'm saying this is in your own household, one of you may know more than the other, and you need to let that other person be the teacher of the things. That's important, because if you just think you know and then you're like BSing your way through it, it's ultimately not going to yield the fruitfulness that you're hoping for. And I'm literally talking about gardening right now, but I'm also talking about whatever else it might be. Translate that to whatever it might be in your life. Right. So the person in your marriage who can, let's say, fortify a way through and everyone else can follow and learn from, let them, encourage them and let them be it. And so it's like, here's my example. You're like, Andy, I need this, and this from the store. I need you to pick up this bag and this. I need this plant. I need that thing. Cool. So sometimes we go together. Sometimes on my own. I'll bring it. And then you're like, okay, so this is going to go here. This is going to go here. And you're explaining it to me because you already know. You've done the research. You've done the work. It's the same thing when it comes to tortillas. Like, you make them. I watch you, but I'm like, man, I don't know how to make those still.
Well, you also haven't put your hand to it. So,
but my point, I know. But my point is for people who maybe aren't in this season of life, is like locate yourself, and be honest about where that is. I'm going to tie this into something else in a second.
Well,
locate where you're at in what actually you can do, but then also locate where you're at in the things that are barriers for you proceeding in the purpose of the life you're supposed to. Back to the generational curses thing. Okay. We have to locate ourselves and what has come to us that we need to stop and prevent, and then the things that we need to create and continue. So the stop and prevent is one side, create and continue is the other. And we had started this conversation talking about that, and now we're talking about gardening, which is a physical demonstration
of what this is to actually
a physical demonstration of the concept.
But even going back to the fact that mom does, well, and this is just for this specific example, mom has created these things. Everybody has learned to help mom in the process. However, there have also been seasons where mom is incapacitated, and whether it's spinal trauma or cancer or whatever has happened, when mom can't, the family should be able to. And that's part of the training as well, is when I'm laid out in bed, I don't expect to be laid out in bed, but sometimes my body doesn't want to do what I want it to do. Therefore, my family has to be willing and able to learn to step into the things that I have taught. And it's not always going to be a joyful thing, but be willing to actually continue the growth process through the hard. Because a lot of the times when the hard hits, things stop growing. And we just give in to that lull and choose not to pursue that, because other people in the family might not have the drive or the call or the passion or the whatever, but it still needs to continue to sustain the family. So make sure that what you're doing is backing, like when you were hospitalized, I had to step into both mom and dad position. And for a very long time, based off of what the 90-10 business did, and we already talked about that, I had to learn to take both of our positions to alleviate things that were on your plate, to alleviate things that you couldn't do. I just had to do. That's just going to happen because life hits. And the word says you will face trial. So when trial hits, did I raise my family well enough to step in when I can't in areas that are supposed to be sustained? Because some things, God's laying us out and allowing us to be laid out so that we let go of something. But in some things, we're just being hit because life hits and we're in a fallen world, and we're going to have to learn to walk through those processes. Now, I don't know if there's anything else you want to hold on to or continue on to I'm going to move past gardening and go into, because of the things that the Lord has been preparing us for in these 7-8 years. I'm going to say 8 because this is our 8th year. We also had a season where we took in 4 extra kids. So we're raising 7 girls for
just shy of a year.
All 4 one of them from May so this came in 2023. We took in one of the girls, and for family situations that needed to be dealt with, we took in one of the girls, and we've known her all her life. We've known all the girls there all their lives. So we take those kids in, and the Lord had told us we would be doing so we did it diligently, and we did it faithfully. And in this season of having 7 children, I will say there were things that the Lord revealed for the sake of grace and mercy. That was another level of calling us up out of good enough into, here's what you guys have been asking us to do. The Lord gave us a calling to build a ranch. We've yet to obtain the ranch, but he's been training us for the ranch for a very long time. But in these past 7-8 years, we have been really seeing where the Lord's hand is going. Okay, now this is actually going to solidify and strengthen your family as a 5. Because what I have for you in this next season, I'm going to add 4 more. And it's going to challenge you. It's going to strengthen you. It's going to reveal you all the things that you haven't dealt with yet. And then I'm going to throw another curveball, and I'm going to go ahead and allow you to see that you've got cancer in the middle of trying to raise 7 daughters. And one of those we've now had for June, July, August, 2 years and 3 months almost. The other 3 we had for 10 months. And in that time frame of having all of those girls, alongside our 3 biological daughters, we have had to really figure out how to teach our all of 9 of us to work together, to work through the traumas, to work through the dramas, to work through the feelings, to pray through and trust through and hope through, and really teach a different level of sisterhood and family and friendship and trust and respect and honor. That was a whole different level of understanding, hey, if you're going to do this with strangers, let's see how well you do with friends. And
connect that with people who aren't following. So what Jen's trying to say is that when the stranger part is when we eventually go to this ranch that we have been shown we're going to own and operate, it will be welcoming people who are broken, welcoming people who are lost, distraught, and maybe just left by people who should not have left them. And the testing ground for what we needed to learn, where we had to find ourselves and what our capability was this season when we had our 3 daughters already. We had 4 more come in who we did know. And it was, what will you do when? So when given this situation, what will you do, and what could we have learned, and what did we learn now? Looking back, what did we learn in that season that then can be carried forward into the next season, where we do have a place that people come to or are sent to, and then they can refine and reestablish themselves, and they are complete strangers.
Right. And how do we have grace in the middle of that? Because there's a lot of hard that comes with reconciliations and soul restorations. There's a lot of hard that comes with that. And so for us specifically in this season of taking on 7 kids, and the biggest lesson I personally learned in the middle of that season was how to push past I should be able to rest. I should be able to just recover. I should be able. And there was a lot of anger that hit me initially when, not at the Lord, but the Lord warned me in advance. That's another story, that I would have to tackle a season of cancer.
You need to explain that.
So I will, but it's not something that could be another thing, because
Can you summarize it in one sentence?
So years ago, the Lord had told me that I was in prayer time. I used to do prayer walks all the time. I still have my upper room seasons all the time. I sit with the Lord. He is my best friend. I listen to him all the time, so I know his voice very well. And one season, I was on a walk, and I remember him saying, out of the blue, Jen, you're going to have to travel through cancer. It's nothing you've done wrong. It's a genetic thing that came down a line. And I'm going to ask you to deal with this. It will be broken. But he told me that years in advance because he was preparing me for the season that I was going to be walking it in. So there's the gist of that. But because he warned me in advance, I knew that when I found the lump in my left breast in March of 23. I was officially diagnosed in December of 23, but because of different things I had already gone through for the sake of just doctor's visits and whatever, they just said, if you find anything, watch it for a few months and see if it grows, blah, blah, blah. It could just be cysts because we have family issues of cysts within our family, my side. And so I watched it. I found it in March. I watched it for about 6 months. I made an appointment for the doctor. It had grown significantly. And because it had grown significantly, I knew since March, I just knew in my spirit that this was the season I was going to have to walk through. And laughed sarcastically with the Lord, going, really? This is when you're going to give it to me? This is when we're doing this? So I found it in March. We were given another girl in May, or we were given our first new girl in May, and then I'm walking through this privately. I mentioned it to you, but I really was walking through it privately. Not really. There were very, very few people that knew I had found anything. So I'm pretty much going through this journey with the Lord almost the entirety of 2023. And the whole time I'm walking through this, it brought me to a different level of faith, prayer, and trust. And so by the time September comes and I go into, we already have now, no, that's not true. Yeah, we ended up getting August, all of the girls.
The other 3 girls joined us.
In September, the very beginning of September. Mm-hmm. The other 3 girls. So we now have 7 girls. I'm going into doctor's appointments and they're going, oh, there is something there. And
test this,
we want to test this, that, and the other. And so we knew there was cancer, but it wasn't officially diagnosed until December when I was given a mammogram and what's the other word?
I don't know.
Where they test the actual...
a biopsy.
Thank you, a biopsy. So December 14th, I received the actual results that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And all of this is happening at the same time where I feel the Lord saying, do you trust me? Lean into me. All of these different circumstances that were of counsel and care, and my word, the things that would come out of the working throughs with each of the girls, including our own three biological daughters. We're sitting here trying to counsel through and process through and build strength and hope and trust and faith and a new way of life, if you will, while making sure that the Lord is at our core. And I remember when I got that diagnosis, I cried. I knew it was there, but when you find out for sure, it's just a different level of reality. And because of that, I remember sitting with the Lord saying, okay, if we're going to do this, I'm going to need you to teach me a different level of fight, because I don't want to be that person. Everybody has their own walk. Please don't hear me downing anybody else's walk with cancer. My walk, especially when it came to having a house of 7 daughters and supporting a company that we were really, it started to give Cruise Productions. It started to get feet. There was a whole lot that was happening in ministry and in work and in home and in all of the different things that I was sitting with the Lord one day and I said, I'm going to need you to give me a different level of fight. There is no give up in me. And you told me in advance, and you are not a man that you should lie. So I'm going to get through this strong and well because you said so. And your word says that when I stand on it, you're going to back it. So that was a different level of fight that came out of me in that season. I learned, and then fast forward, I had gone through surgery. Initially, it was supposed to be a lumpectomy, and then I was told it was going to be a mastectomy, and another level of breaking happened there, where it was, things aren't always going to look the way you think they're going to look. It was early on. It wasn't I had probably had this for a couple of years, but it was still a slow mover. And so I didn't feel that pressure of having to make drastic decisions. So I assumed it was going to look very light and easy, and it was not. But having faith and hope in this process and a different level of fight in this process, going through surgery in April, going through the recovery process, I remember really only having 2 actual weeks of recovery where I was able to be laid out in bed and not really be able or required to do all the mom things and all the wife things and all the whatever. I remember laying there one time and I wasn't released of the tubes yet, and I wasn't released of, I didn't have full mobility of my arm. I don't know why this is making me, anywho, we're going to push through. I think it's not necessarily that I was diagnosed with cancer and I had to go through the things. That was the hardest season of my personal life. I know it affected the whole family, but me personally, as a woman of God, trying to lean in differently, trying to hope differently, trying to have faith differently, trying to listen and trust differently. I remember one day laying in bed going, God, I'm really tired. Why can't I just have a longer season of rest to recover? And in that moment, he didn't say a word, but I felt my spirit be blessed with a different level of fight. Like he was telling me without words, I already put the ability in you. I already put the fight in you. I'm going to need you to just go ahead and put your big girl pants on. I'm going to ask you to get up and be harder on your physical therapy. I'm going to need you to be harder and more diligent with your diet. I'm going to need you to be harder and more diligent with getting up and getting involved in these girls. I didn't make you to sit down. I made you to stand up. And by faith, by my word, by hope, you are going to be able to come through this in strength, retraining your mind in how to actually function for the sake of the temple that I gave you, taking out what was not good, putting in what is good, and do your research. Don't just take what's handed to you from the medical establishment. Research for yourself. And I've done all of that. And because of all of that encouragement from the Lord, even by things that I didn't hear him in, but I knew he was saying to my spirit, get up and fight. You don't get to give up. There are too many people that are dependent on you in this season, and you just don't get, he said one day, sweetheart, you'll rest when you're home. I'm not home yet. I'm still here, and he's asking me to work. So because of all the things that from when you were in the hospital to when I was in the hospital to having 4 extra kids to figuring out what we're supposed to be doing and putting grace and mercy on it different levels while he's purging friendships and relationships that are no longer supposed to walk through seasons with us, where there was a lot of heartbreak, not just in the home and because of physical ailments, there was heartbreak relationally as well. but then learning to trust when we release certain people who are no longer able to walk through those seasons into who aren't able to walk into the new seasons with us. There's a peace that comes with that. If you can come in through prayer and trust and hope and faith, putting on the goodness of the Lord, trusting him that whole way. Like, that's where this 8 years has brought us. It was a lot of soul care. It was a lot of surgery, physically and spiritually. It was a lot of releasing the things that we had no control over and learning to function in the things that we did have control over. But because of this 8 years, now we're in the 8th year in 2025, we had to come into this place of understanding, okay, now we no longer have, and we're releasing our first edition into college and into her new journey. And the other 3 had gone back home a year ago in July. And we have our 3 biologicals, and they're going off into their own journeys now. And the Lord's going, okay, now you're ready. You gave me all the things that were bondages and hindrances. You gave me the relationships that were no longer able to support where I'm sending you. You gave me the traumas and the dramas, and you let me help you retrain your mind in how to work your temple and how to get the most out of your temple and endure in strength and in faith and in intentionality. Now, where I'm sending you now, I'm going to ask you to trust me even more so, like I asked Abraham to trust me when I said to go, and I'll give you the steps along the way. We have no idea how we're going to get this ranch. We have no idea financially how we're going to establish this. But by the grace of God, he's been faithful up until this point. So we trust that that's something he's going to open up to us in the near future.
So what would you say to somebody who, is not sure where to start in this process of like working through the generational stuff? So you're talking about a lot of things that have happened in our life while you're also doing that. So it's like there's this current, so you're saying all these layers of stories and timelines. Underneath all that is this process. So for someone who doesn't know how to start that process, what would you tell them is the best way to begin?
The hardest place I knew I had to start was learning to listen to the Lord's voice. And that was many years ago. My mind and many people's minds, we can get so distracted by our own thoughts and our own busy that we have trouble sitting down for even a minute at a time, just trying to hear the Lord's voice. There is something so important about creating an upper room experience with the Lord. And it should never just be an experience you're after. It should be time on purpose for the sake of learning his heart for you. I say that as though the relationship you have with the Lord is like it's a marriage. And I am often reminded by the Lord that if I don't sit with my husband, if I don't listen to my husband, if I don't listen to his heart, if I don't learn his heart, I can't partner with you well. And it took us many years to actually figure out how to do that. We are only now coming into a season truly, and we've been together for 23 years. We've been married 22, we've been together for 23 years. We are only now coming into that process of actually really learning each other's hearts on purpose. And that's been a growth process. A lot of things had to die in order for us to actually hear. But that's what it is with the Lord. And a lot of people really struggle with that because, well, my week is too busy. I've got a lot of work to do. I don't have enough time. There's always an excuse. But I can say the same thing for you. I'm too busy to sit with you. Your work week is way too long. I'm too tired by the time you come home. I really don't have the energy to sit and listen to you. And what does that lead me to but divorce? If I don't spend time with you on purpose and learn you and speak to you and serve you, like the other night, Andy was coming home late, and was I frustrated? Yes, because that is something that we are trying to really work through to where proper work hours are becoming healthy for our family, and we create margin for the sake of time, and where we both have the same amount of energy at the end of the day, where we want to play games and we want to do movie night and we want to sit with the kids. So he's coming home late, and in his text, he says, I want the rice and beans you just made. And I've been doing a lot of food prep. So in what I made, he was craving that. And so my head said, I'd better make some tortillas because I know he loves them, and I know he's had a long day. And even though I'm pissed that he's late, I know his heart. And I know that when he walks in those doors, if there are fresh tortillas waiting for him, he's going to come into a good meal, and I'm going to bless him, while at the same time giving him a little bit of an elbow into the stomach of, you know you're late. Don't make this excuse.
And I was not expecting tortillas. I was literally just thinking about those two things.
I know.
So I appreciate that. But I think that this is a good example, too, for people who maybe find themselves where things aren't working exactly as they want in their life. Like, we have had so many of those different seasons, and it's for a variety of reasons. And you like to use the word excuses, but sometimes there's reasons.
Sure.
And I'm going to say reasons not as an excuse. But the reason I'm bringing this up, because it's important that you in your own relationship have a very clear definition and difference between what those things are.
Yeah.
The car won't start. That's a reason.
That's
a reason. Not an excuse.
No, and yeah.
Farting around at the office for 45 minutes and then being late 45 minutes, that's an excuse.
That's an excuse.
There's a reason, but that's a really bad one.
Yeah. and trying to figure out what that is, and what do I support you in versus what do I hold you to? Because you said this with me, and we're trying to build this in health.
Well,
don't slack on that,
and not let that ruin the time that you do have, because now you just come back together in the same space. Well, let's not squander the next 4 hours because of this moment and this experience.
Yes,
I understand that. Yeah, sure. There's behavior we got to fix, and there's scheduling we got to adjust and ratchet down and make better. Mm-hmm. And also, let's not squander the time we do have left. And that is something
because of those hiccups.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't want that for us. I don't want that for other people too. As much as it's not an excuse, like, don't lean into that and take advantage of that either.
Yeah, but then taking it back to, how am I doing that with the Lord? Because when we're working through all of these 8 years now of what it looks like to actually give him the broken things, let him touch the broken pieces and the hurtful. A lot of people will sit there and say, okay, well, I have learned to let the Lord minister to my heart where it is hurting. It's like when your dad comes in and you're a little kid and you're not feeling well, and he puts his hand on your forehead and he says, "Hi, baby, how are you? I love you." And he's just soothing you, okay? His job isn't just to soothe me with his hand and "I love you," and his job is to make sure that I'm bringing the fever down, and I'm getting the proper nutrients, and I'm all of the things that are going to aid my body through healing. It's not just "I love you, are you okay?" The Father's doing that with our hurts and hangups, but we actually have to let him then do the surgeries and touch the broken pieces that are infected. A lot of us in the Christian walk, we tend to go, yeah, I'm going to keep that. I don't want you to touch that one. That's too painful. And if we did that, we would not be married today. And there were many times where I didn't want to touch the things because I knew you weren't going to go there with me. You weren't going to do this. It wasn't. And that's, again, why it took us many years to actually get to this spot. We have to let God do the surgery. These past 8 years was a lot of surgery. And we were forced in some cases to let him have those things. But in other cases, it was a slow drawing out of the poison because we were so reluctant to actually deal with the fact that we were really battling with certain agreements that were either generational or we just put them on ourselves. So that's what I guess I could say to how to explain where to even start with that is learn to listen. Give yourself 5 minutes a day. That's not a long time. It really isn't. Where you are just going, okay, Jesus, this is my time. Even if you don't know Jesus and you're sitting here listening to me going, she's crazy. Cool, call me crazy. Or your life is forever, whoever's listening, that you haven't been able to just make sense of it. Why is this not working? Why is this not, I'm not getting ahead. I can't figure out why X, Y, Z. And you are just at a loss. Nothing has worked. I can encourage you to just even sit with the Lord and say, I don't know you. I don't even know if you exist. But here's the thing. If you don't exist, I'm not losing anything. If you do exist, can you show me who you are to me? And then give him your ear. Because when you ask, you will receive. When you seek, you will find. When you knock, the door will be opened. God is not a man that he will lie to you, but he will absolutely reveal to you the things that he needs you to allow him into. And he's going to reveal the things that are the hardest for you to deal with. Because those are the things that are preventing you from having freedom in peace and in joy and in tenderness and in grace and in love and in mercy and in forgiveness and all of those things. We go, I'm not forgiving that person. They abused me. I'm not forgiving that person. They did too much damage. Okay, it's not about the person. It's about your heart's freedom. So if you want to know the person who saved me, and I can't tell you how deep the Lord has gone in words, but he's the one that pulled me back from death a couple of different times, literal death a couple different times. He's the only one that met me there. And so if you are curious, give him 5 minutes. Sit there don't just sit there and pretend, I tried it. I'm sorry, but that's bullshitting yourself. And I don't mean to be crass or rude or whatever, but you want to know somebody, you got to get to know somebody. You can't just play the victim and pretend that he didn't make the effort. And I've had to continuously do that no matter how hard the season.
So there is a resource that I know both you and I have used that we didn't really talk about a lot in this conversation, but the book Soul Care is a useful resource. I'll put the description in the notes below, but if you're in a place where you need to be in that starting point and there's stuff that you've maybe been contending with or wrestling with for a long time, you don't know where to start, maybe just start there. That would be a really useful way to have something you can read and learn through while also do the active participation part of, to then kind of free yourself of the things that have been keeping you back and keeping you back from all the things that are intended for you. So I'll put that link below.
Yeah, that has been a really good resource, is figuring out what soul care is and how to allow the Lord to bring deliverance into our lives from the bondages that we have said yes to. And if you don't understand those things, that's okay. Start with the things that you do understand.
Most people aren't going to understand them. They're not even aware of them, let alone understand it. And that's why the resources are helpful. That's why conversations with people who've been through it or are in it can help. And I think wherever you find yourself in that, it's important to just be very honest with what stage you're at in that process. Just because that's where you're starting from. Don't try to skip steps and go right to the end. That's not going to help you at all.
No, that was probably the best lesson the Lord taught us through this whole thing, is the ask that you're bringing to the Lord takes time for him to answer. And sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it takes 8 years. Sometimes it takes 15. I mean, gosh, there are things that I'm still waiting on. And he continues encouraging me in those areas, that he's not done with those things. He's still shaping me to be able to build into those things, but he's not there yet. And so if you're still drinking milk, or you haven't even picked up the bottle yet in your walk with the Lord, just ask him to show you where he wants to speak to you directly. Everybody's got their own journey and their own time frame in their journey. Mine has been over 25 years now, and so that took him a long time to actually bring me into where I am with him in our friendship, in our relationship, in my trust in him and my faith in him. It did not happen overnight by any means. So, it didn't happen even the first 5 to 10 years was a lot that he was trying to reveal to me, but I wasn't ready for it. So just have grace with yourself, have mercy on yourself, forgive yourself. You will stumble because we're human and we're fallible. And I've dropped the ball many of times on things that I was just learning through and didn't know how to, walk through in friendships and whatever. The Lord will just be graceful and grace-filled towards you as you are walking with him. He is an awesome God who loves you dearly. And I know that's the only reason that we're standing today in everything, with the raising of our girls, with the ministries that he's placed on our hearts, with the businesses that he's given us, and with our marriage.
Well, thank you for that was a lot today.
Yeah.
And a lot of those different things you were talking about just historically have a lot more parts to them. So I'm sure they're gonna make their way back into future conversations we have. So thank you for being so vulnerable and being honest about all those things today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and if you do have questions for anything that was shared today, please don't hesitate to comment and ask for clarification on things. We are happy to answer. I mean, for us, we've been blessed with so many people that have been willing to share their own testimonies and guide us in directions where we got stuck, didn't know, whatever. We really were graced with people who were loving and caring through our walks as well. And please don't hesitate to ask. And thank you for taking the time to sit with us.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. Great job today. Once again, I appreciate you very much, and I love you and all of the tenacity and fight you have given to the fight itself. You brought the fight showed up and knocked at our door, and you were like, I'll punch back.
Yeah.
My casual fun joke I like to tell people now is like, you thought Jen was a menace before. It's twice as bad now. She's on her feet, kicking butt. So Thank you all for watching. We appreciate you joining us once again for another episode, and we look forward to seeing you again at the next one. See ya.